So, it's a pretty unique day for me. It's the first time I found a microphone to use for this damn computer. And, my name's Luke. I just started this channel. I have no technology to be able to post videos with good sound quality or anything, but I spent all my time the last probably 5 years just researching things that I was interested in, watching podcasts, collecting information from everywhere. I love Graham Hancock stuff. I love Terrence McKenna. I love, Randall Carlson, Brian Forster. I'm not so much into the ancient alien stuff, even though it's really interesting and there's a lot of interesting stuff out there about it, but I'm more interested in how it all connects and the bigger picture that I feel like people are missing from, if you haven't had a psychedelic experience and if you haven't had time to research a bunch of random stuff in ancient cultures, the picture that I'm talking about isn't really fully there. It's like, there was some stuff that ancient people did that we can't explain. There was some stuff that we don't really know what happened because it was so long ago. But when it comes down to it, DMT and in effect psilocybin, in my opinion, are the centerfold of the entire thing. Like what Terrence McKenna was talking about. And whether or not it is, you can at least draw a myriad of connections between anything on Earth and these chemicals, because the chemicals provide an experience. The experience is ancient, and it's made its way into our culture, hidden through like archetypes, things like that, like subliminal messages. So do yourself a favor and watch Jordan Peterson's analysis of The Lion King, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. How even shamanic archetypes and initiation sequences and the love interests and the friends and everything that is an essential part of life makes it into our storytelling, whether we want it to or not, because the mechanisms in our head for these experiences are from our past, our shared experiences for the last thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, if not millions. So what I aim to provide is a source of a nexus where this information can be utilized, can be connected. For example, like, I used to be a Christian for a long time. I used to believe in God and Jesus, and I read the Bible a lot. And one of the basic things when you're a Christian is these ideas that the Big Bang and the creation story in the Bible are not entirely separate. If you want to believe in the scientist story of the Big Bang, or you want to believe in the Christian story of God saying, "Let there be light," if you use your imagination to imagine the difference between the two events, the difference between God, quote unquote, saying, "Let there be light," and in the Bible it explaining all the stars of the universe shooting out of his mouth in one moment, and then on the right side you have the Big Bang, which says out of one point all of the matter and material in the universe came bursting through. They are really similar stories, whether or not one is drastically hard to believe, but is the point that the people who wrote the original story had some understanding of how it really happened, and they wanted to communicate that in a way that was actually communicatable to people that weren't all intelligent, people that might be 1,000 years from now, 2,000 years from now, 10,000 years from now. So that parallel between things not actually contradicting, but only appearing that way through argument. That's something I see a lot, and the parallels between so many things. I mean, the more you research about this stuff, the more you'll see it in your favorite TV shows, in your favorite books, cartoons. They're in children's cartoons. These references for trips, for entities, for elves, What really is strange about it is that DMT is this drug that supposedly, this chemical that supposedly is in your system when you die, possibly, when you're born, possibly, and when you're alive, and when you're sleeping. Now, the very same chemical is responsible. So basically, death and the psychedelic experience have a common link, which is DMT. Sleep and the psychedelic experience have a common link, which is DMT. Mushrooms, a different psychedelic experience. Their chemical composition, if you look at the molecule, it is almost exactly DMT. It's got an extra oxygen molecule, which makes it non-recognized by the MAOI, or by the MAO in your stomach, so you can pass it through and ingest it into your system. So if you do research, psilocybin and DMT are not that different. At least psilocybin, mushrooms, and ayahuasca, not that different. DMT is naturally existing, but psilocybin is also a twin chemical of DMT in nature. It's like definitely doesn't feel the same, definitely doesn't do the exact same thing, but it is in chemical makeup almost the same thing. So now we're connecting nature to sleep to death to a psychedelic experience, right? So then you can keep going. You can keep going and going and going and finding Santa Claus. Santa Claus comes from a mushroom cult in Siberia. Siberia has the reindeer. The reindeer eat the magic mushrooms. The reindeer fly, right? That's why. We've got all this magic surrounding Santa Claus. It's because he was a shaman. They handed out psychedelic mushrooms, and not in a literal fashion. Santa Claus is a saint, Saint Nicholas, that was probably adapted from a shaman in a mushroom cult, where he wore the colors of the mushroom. He wrapped up. The real kicker that you can't deny it is that these mushrooms, they grow in rings underneath pine trees, because mushrooms grow in circles. So the very idea of putting presents under your tree and the shiny wrapping paper and the red and white and the all in a row under the tree, that's an imitation of where you would find the gifts, which would be your Amanita muscaria mushrooms. Good for treating colds and things like that in the wintertime. People would get snowed in Siberia, and the shaman would actually have to sometimes come in through the chimney. So there's a connection between religion, let's say pagan celebrations, death, sleep, psychedelics. And we can keep going on and on and on and start picking out all kinds of things. You can look at subliminal messaging and advertisement. You can look at repression, what we've been repressed, sexual repression, our repression of our basic human experiences, and that causes us to be much more predictable when we lash out at things that were offered, such as pots was illegal for a long time, mushrooms still illegal in a lot of places, but you can go get yourself a sixer and get drunk and crash yourself into a building. You can do heroin, and that is going to... The fact that these drug epidemics exist, to me, are another leftover piece of this puzzle, that we've been doing psychedelics for so long. We've have a spot in our psychology and our physiology for getting high, and we've had that for thousands of years. And now that we've demonized everything that was healthy to put into that hole, we now, as just a species, are reaching out for anything that makes us feel sedated, like Oxycontin, cocaine, anything that people get, they'll do. And I just don't think that's normal, because people are generally, the ones I meet are pussies, and that means that they're really in pain. They're really looking for something to make their everyday, boring, depressing life feel like there's something happening. So we've got a connection now between death, sleep, psychedelics, religion, pagan holidays, and kids partying. I mean, if you just if you just write DMT and then you just start writing anything possibly magic, when you think about magic is kind of here or there, could be science, could be. But when you go back a little further into alchemy, you get into like the alchemical people that are really interesting. And I have a strong feeling that they were working with psychoactive chemicals, because I don't see how someone that long ago could get the impression that you could turn lead into gold, or a human into a god, by means of a chemical process, without having experienced something like that. Like, if I was an alchemist and I thought, I can do some chemical process that must be able to turn lead into gold and make lots of money, or at least will allow me the power. I have friends that told me that they weren't actually trying to turn lead into gold, that they were really trying to turn a human being into a creative force of a god through these chemical compounds. And There's only one thing that I've ever experienced like that to give me that impression, and that was psychedelics. And if I had to guess, I'd guess that the scientists that were underground studying shit, talking about magic, probably knew about psychedelics. And they probably did some. So it keeps going back further and further in the chain. I mean, mushrooms are the largest organism on the planet, the fungus. They're the oldest organism on the planet. They were the very first multicellular organisms as fungus. So the thing that causes these, the very animal that causes these psychedelic experiences just happens to be the biggest and oldest animal on our planet. It happens to be able to survive the vacuum of space, its spores. It happens to, magic mushrooms happen to have a different biological architecture than any other mushroom or anything on the planet. So there's so many of these little lined up. You got space, you got aliens. There is a strong connection between alien abductions and sleep paralysis experiences. Because there's sleep paralysis experiences, that works its way into the DMT realm also. People can also have alien abduction feelings on DMT, on psilocybin mushrooms. So I encourage you to do your own research, because you'll slowly find that one by one, everything that you ever thought was cool traces back to a basic compound in the human brain, and then that traces us back just to genetic memories that we share with our ancient ancestors over thousands of years, things that are built into us that we haven't yet been able to evolve out of. And it makes a lot of sense to me that our gods and our religions have been so unsatisfactory because they've been fabricated and adjusted to fit people that are consumers in this capitalist society, which, you know, I don't judge anyone for their choices in life, but life could make a lot more sense to us, and we could actually find our purpose and the meaning for human beings on this planet if we looked a little bit deeper than just at the surface level of everything. So there'll be more to come. Stay with me.